The US and Iran have carried out tit-for-tat strikes, effectively breaching their ceasefire. Iranian state media says Tehran retaliated by striking US targets in the Middle East after the US military launched attacks on Iran. US Central Command confirmed its aircraft struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites. The incident that sparked this back and forth was on Thursday when Iran allegedly fired on a commercial cargo ship transiting the Strait of Hormuz. The US condemned the attack as a ceasefire violation. US Vice President J.D. Vance, posting on X, said Iran signed a ceasefire agreement. We have honoured it. If they have disagreements about how the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, is being applied, they can pick up the phone, but violence will be met with violence. Our North America correspondent Hugh Griffith sent this update from Washington.
US Central Command announced that it had carried out these strikes on Iranian drone and missile storage facilities and on a coastal radar base. Now, it says that it was a powerful response to a commercial vessel being hit in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, claiming that Iran had clearly violated the ceasefire and that it was a way of the US ensuring that the Memorandum of Understanding signed just over a week ago between the two countries was being fully imposed and obeyed locally. A couple of hours later, the Vice President J.D. Vance on social media said that the US was upholding the ceasefire, and if Iran had a problem with how the memorandum was being imposed, it could always pick up the phone. However, ominously, he finished that message with the words, "Violence will be followed by violence." Now, his words were prophetic in one way, because a couple of hours later, there were reports emerging that Iran had struck back, trying to target locations where there are US bases. There are no details yet of exactly what that means, the scale of it, or the exact locations involved, but it does create the risk of the ceasefire being breached on both sides and the situation escalating. That said, arguably, it's probably not in either side's interest to see this return to an all-out war situation where we were 4 months ago. We know that here in the US, the Iran war has become unpopular with the public and also politically, with some Republicans turning against Donald Trump. And on the other side, well, we know that Iran's military capabilities has probably been struck severely over the last few months, and both sides have an interest in seeing the Strait of Hormuz open for oil to pass through. But clearly there's a disagreement here over how that's managed, and that ultimately may cause some companies and insurers to reconsider what their plans will be for the next few days and weeks ahead.
Hugh Griffith there. Well, Arman Mahmoudian is a Middle East analyst at the University of South Florida. Here's his take on the significance of the latest developments in the region.
I think it is significant in terms of, being the first exchange of the fire after the Memorandum of Understanding being implemented. But I doubt that at this point, this exchange of the fire would actually result in the collapse of the Memorandum of the Understanding, as your other guest pointed out rightfully. Both parties are very vastly invested and interested in concluding this matter without any war, with a diplomatical settlement. And the fact that 2 days exchange of the fire between Iran and the United States didn't carry out, so far at least, any casualty, and the attack seems to be contained. It wasn't large, it was contained, limited, targeted, shows that while both parties want to demonstrate their willingness to use force, their capability to extract force, still they'd rather to keep the tension contained and give the diplomacy's chance. That doesn't mean that there wouldn't be another exchange of fire. I think as long as we haven't reached a political settlement between the United States and Iran, sadly, we will witness similar experiences. But as long as the desire is to keep it contained, they can manage toward the negotiations.
Hugh Griffiths was just talking there about the military capabilities of Iran and how badly they've been affected. What's your assessment on that front in terms of how bad the situation is for Iran?
It's very, militarily speaking, the Iranians have been badly degraded. And to be frank, if Iran didn't have this leverage over the Strait of the Hormuz, and it would have a very hard time to resist against America, wants to push back, to extract concessions. Iranian launcher capability, which Iran needs to launch ballistic missiles against Israel and United States and bases across the region, has been badly damaged. Iran still has problem with restoring its ballistic storage, ballistic missile missile sites. Some of the missiles seems to survive, but they are still under the ruins, and the gates to entry gates to these bunkers have been badly damaged. Iran's chain of command still needs time to settle. We do know that the highest echelon of the Iran's IRGC and also army have been killed in the first stage of the war. New commanders still need time to get familiar with the planning, with the rest of their organization and body of the troops. So military speaking, Iran has badly been damaged. And this is the leverage over the Strait of Hormuz that keep them going and keep them, to have some leverage in the negotiation. And I think that's one of the reasons that Iran is very keen to do such a maneuver, such as earlier yesterday, an attacks against the cargoes, to demonstrate to America that it's willing to use this leverage and not letting the Strait of Hormuz to be completely reopened, because reopening of the Strait of Hormuz prior to the end of the political settlement would make Iran actually much weaker and give Iran much lower hand. In the absence of the Strait of Hormuz, they will not have much of options to make the Americans to make concessions to the Iranians or reduce the Americans' demands for the Iranians' compromise.